Hey, what is up guys? So we are going to be going over the best XYZ monsters that came out in 2013. To qualify for this list, the monster actually had to come out in 2013 without having its reprint announced in 2013. So first off, I do want to mention that we are talking about the TCG. We're not talking about any Chinese New Year, January 31st, but shout out to Sarah Jessica Parker for, Year of the Horse. But anyways, let's go ahead and kick it off with Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosac. So I think unarguably this is probably the best XYZ that we'll ever get in the game. Getting 2 tokens, having a really good offensive ability and a defensive ability, also a synchro ability. This card is just way too good. But yeah, this card isn't as popular to throw out anymore as often, simply because there are not that many players playing dragons. I know that there are the whole heretic dragons, but the thing is, there are so many other decks that can just kind of throw out Dracosac as well. Mermail's being one of them, but not as relevant as before, where it was like dragons every single duel. But next up we have Lavalval Chain. So this card basically brought back an Infernities, and this card, if any of you guys have played against Infernities, sometimes they'll go for a first from Lavalval Chain. They'll set everything that they have, and they'll be like, okay, top deck Archetype, and then you gotta look at your hand and be like, okay, I better be able to stop next turn, otherwise I'm going to get barriered and just get swarmed and just simply lose. Well, it depends on what variants they're playing. There's very few players playing the Synchro variant anymore, but the whole, XYZ variant is still relatively popular and it has a lot of control. Obviously, Barrier is still a very good card. Next up, we have Diamond Direwolf, and I was waiting for a really good generic rank 4 to just get rid of one problematic card, and Diamond Direwolf really came in for that, although Diamond Direwolf kind of got overshadowed. Now we have so many cards, for example, like number 101, or something like the Evil Storm, the Exciton Knight, the one that basically pops the entire field. That card is absolutely crazy too, but nonetheless, was still definitely a good card. And what I love with this card is it pops just problematic cards. Like if there's something that you just can't get rid of, you just need to get rid of it. Hey, Diamond Direwolf is there for you. Next up we have number 74, Master of Blades. Now this card definitely got overshadowed by basically Crimson Blader. If Crimson Blader wasn't a thing, this card probably would have been a lot more popular. You can still scrap Dragon and attack over it, but the thing is, in Dragon Mirror Match, this card, for a while, this card was kind of expensive, and I was like, I didn't really understand why. Because the thing is, Crimson Blader just attacked over it, and I think people realized that, and they're like, okay, never mind, this card is not that great anymore. But it was a really cheap card that people could play, because not everyone had, multiple Dracosac, multiple Big Eyes, so this is nonetheless a, just a decent card. Oh, by the way, Big Eye came out in 2012, for any of you guys that will probably mention it later on. But yeah, that card, unfortunately, didn't come out in 2013. Same thing with Tiramisu. But, yeah, this card just gets Crimson Bladed. Other than that, obviously, Big Eye and Dracosac would not want to target this card, otherwise the player would go kind of minus. But, I think this card it's an okay card. Maybe this card will see some more play in the future. Now, we're going to be covering a bunch of other cards now, otherwise this video would kind of be short, because there weren't very many insanely good XYZs that were really generic, other than, I would say these two. These are probably the most relevant. I guess you can kind of include Diamond Direwolf, but the main cards, I would say that, really changed the game that were generic were those 3 like I mentioned. But, let's go ahead and cover a bunch of the non-generic ones, because I think that they still definitely changed the game. First off, Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Tiger King. This one definitely changed up the game a lot. Basically, it's just a really simple card to go to, and then you just re-add Tenki or Tensu, and you can basically have a good effect too. And this card is just kind of their go-to card to gain a lot of advantage tactically. It's a pretty simple concept. It's not like you have to work hard to actually make it. You just go, the Coach King into make this, into add Tenki, into add Coach King to potentially make another one, or later on, if you really wanted to, you can go ahead and make something like Cardinal, which is still a fantastic card. But next up, we have the Constellar M7, and also kind of one of those cards that was conditional to certain decks, but this card was actually involved in a ton of loops. Now, actually I should say, fortunately, they actually hit a lot of the stuff that would involve most of the loops. There was a Gishki loop with this card. There were so many countless loops with M7, but, thank Odin, they actually, changed this card up, because, basically changed the other cards, so you couldn't do these loops. I don't really like loops and, broken things in Yu-Gi-Oh!, even though I share a lot of those combos off with you guys. But next up, we have number 66, Master Key Beetle. This card is just, one of those conditional cards because it requires Dark Monsters. But if you've ever faced up against a Safe Zone Key Beetle, certain decks just don't have an out to it. No matter what you do, you have nothing in your deck that can get rid of a Key Beetle and a Safe Zone, which is really annoying to deal with. I'm sure one of you guys eventually will match up against one of these decks, just because some people like to troll with it, and it's just a really great card just to simply just lock your opponent out with just 2 cards. Now the next card we're going to talk about basically can be comboed with Safe Zone 2. Probably one of the most annoying cards I think that's ever been made in the game, because it doesn't even allow your opponent to play. It's not like they can even play around it. It's just like they summon it and you're like, oh man, I lose. Like straight up, there's like very few answers for certain decks. And this was supposed to answer a lot of the meta, even though this technically it was like an anti-meta deck that kind of became meta. Unfortunately, well actually I should say fortunately, in TCG it was not nearly as popular than the OCG. OCG had like the biggest hard-on for this deck for the longest time, and I'm kind of glad that you know, this card didn't, well, the deck was super popular, but not to the point where it was in the OCG, because this deck didn't promote like, you know, player interaction. It was kind of just like, you make this card and then you just win, and that's just kind of how it is. But next card up is basically kind of like the counter, I guess, though the opposite spectrum. It is a light card, the Constellar Pleiades. This card is still pretty good, and I feel like this card could definitely see a lot more play because, you know, artifacts are going to be coming out, and you know, it's pretty easy to make it in artifacts. And a first turn Pleiades is still a first turn Pleiades, and you know, it's just good. I mean, these definitely did change the game, I would say, in 2013. Next up we have the Lightning Chidori. Now this card basically is used in like Harpies only, but the thing is, for a while Harpies were really popular, especially right after that video came out where Jeff Jones played Kevin Silva and he beat him with his Harpy deck, and everyone was playing Harpies for, you know, a long time. But the thing is, I think that deck kind of like lost its, you know, like hotspot, because the deck doesn't really have that many huge explosive plays other than flip Hysteric Party, go for a bunch of, you know, cards and go for a game. The thing is, you know, monsters effects are pretty much the most relevant thing in the game, and Lightning Chidori is really good because it just bounces back those problematic cards, and when it comes out, it gets to get rid of a back row, so then you can successfully use its effect and potentially get that 1900 damage. And now he's obviously pretty weak, so it's not like a huge threat. Now we're going to be covering a bunch of, you know, kind of smaller cards. I think they're just, you know, worthy of mentioning, although they weren't like something that really impacted the game. First off, Battling Boxer Lead Yoke. This card, he's a cool card, and unfortunately, you know, people just like to big eye him, they like to banish him or steal him. There's just so many ways to just get rid of Yoke, and you know, basically all the deck does is make Yoke. Like Battling Boxers just go, okay Yoke, and like they never really have the options to make anything else, because the thing is, like, this is the best card that they have, and it's a good card, don't get me wrong. It's just sometimes once your opponent knows that you're playing Battling Boxers, like all they need to do is have something that banishes, and like they're pretty much good to go. But you know, D-Prison, you know, for whatever reason, D-Prison's at 2. Like, I don't know, but this card nonetheless was a good card to mention, I would say. Next up we have Gauntlet Launcher. Now this card definitely is overshadowed by Photon Strike Balancer, which is why I kind of feel like it's not like a huge worthy card of mentioning. But you know, nonetheless, it came out in 2013 and it has a pretty decent effect. But Balancer's just better. It's just overall much better. Unless you're already in a bad spot and the monster's already out, then hey, Gauntlet Launcher is definitely there. I mean, they keep on trying to push, you know, support for Monarchs, so it makes me think that eventually they're making a really good build of Monarchs, or just some crazy spellbook of Monarchs. So, you know, they might just make a Judgment of the Monarchs card, and then eventually Monarchs will be good again, like they were, I don't know how many formats ago Monarchs were actually a thing. And last but not least, number 85, Crazy Box. Now this is probably one of my favorite XYZs, because the thing is, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! To me, it's not really a fair or balanced game anyways, and it's never really been that way. And I just love this card for its pure sack factor. I mean, technically we roll a dice to see if we win the game sometimes with this card. Well, technically you do roll the dice to see who goes first, and that can determine a winner all on its own. But number 85, Crazy Box, holds a special place in my dark, icy cold heart, because I love this card just because sometimes you win with Crazy Box. Like, you literally can just sack someone super hard with Crazy Box. It's got a good attack too, so sometimes getting that effect where you get to, you know, just destroy one card on the field, sometimes I usually activate its effect and it always halves my life points. You guys have seen it. I don't know how many times I went for Crazy Box, but I'd say at least 50% of the time it halves my life points. Maybe on DevPro there's like a higher chance to halve your own life points with Crazy Box, because it always happens to me. But anyways, guys, I'll leave a link down below in the description box if you guys want to check out the best Synchro monsters that came out in 2013. But anyways, if you guys felt like I missed out on any good XYZ monsters that came out in 2013, remember, they had to have come out in 2013 because that's the point of the video. But someone's going to mention, why is Tiramisu not in this video? Or why is something like, what is Big Eye? Why are they not in there? Well, the thing is, they're too old. They're 2012. But, you know, there's been a lot of great XYZ, so I can't wait to see what 2014 has for us. I mean, we already have number 101, which I think is probably one of the best generic rank for us right now in the game. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and like I said, let me know if you guys felt like I missed out any. I feel like Starlight Pilot Dynamo could have been in here too, definitely, but that'll be, for Lightsworn. Lightsworn hasn't been really too relevant in the TCG because we kind of can't really play it yet, but that card will definitely be there in the future. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Asian Eyes signing out.